India has, I think, three priceless advantages over China. Democracy, which in the end brings out the best in people. The rule of law, which in the end means that people will be treated fairly. And to a great extent, the English language.
In our countries, and it's wonderful that you could fly in for this event. Let me start by asking you, and we are talking about the Asia-Pacific region, and I promise I will ask about cricket at the end of all of this. To what extent is our strategic partnership premised by the fact that China is a mutual concern?
Well, it's not just about China, obviously, Vishnu. The relationship between Australia and India has been long and strong, a bit intermittent, but basically long and strong for the best part of 200 years. People often forget that there were Indian troops at Gallipoli, there were Indian troops at Tobruk, there were Indian troops at Singapore serving alongside the Australians. And we now have something like 1 million Australians of Indian background in our country. And so it's a strong and dynamic relationship that's growing all the time. But yes, we do have, I suppose, a shared concern about the ambitions of Communist China. And let's not beat around the bush. Under the Communist Party, Beijing, it says it often, their objective is to dominate the region and then to dominate the world. They frequently say that by the centenary of communist control, that's to say by 2049, they want to be the global hegemonic power. And that spells trouble. It spells trouble for all of China's neighbours, and in the end, it spells trouble for the wider world, because over the last couple of 100 years, we've been evolving in the direction of liberal, pluralist democracy under the long Anglo-American ascendancy. And if the dominant power changes and the dominant philosophy changes, well, then the world will change with it, and not necessarily for the better.
How do you assume that it's not going to change? China is a growing economy, militarily now the largest navy in the world, the pace of their militarization unmatched perhaps in human history. Therefore, are we not in for a fundamental change in the world order within the next finite period of time?
Well, one of the points that I've been making for years now is that India is the essential democratic counterweight to China. And India should not underestimate itself. India is now the world's most populous country. I think India is at the beginning of the kind of economic takeoff that China was in 2 decades ago. You go to any large Indian city, there is massive infrastructure going on, subway systems being put in. India is now being crisscrossed by motorways, new airports. India is rising up the ranks in all the various industries that matter, and in general economic sophistication. India can substitute for China in all of those critical supply chains that the West needs to move out of China as a matter of some urgency. So I think really the 21st century belongs to India just as much as it might belong to China. And I think it will be much better for all of us if India bulks larger and perhaps China bulks smaller in the decades to come.
Mr. Abbott, I agree with you entirely, but there is a new reality, perhaps a mini reality happening right now. We've had our Prime Minister visit Tianjin a couple of weeks back, where we saw him with the Chinese president. We're re-establishing direct flights between Beijing and Delhi, which should in any case have been there. But there is an economic reset as well, and there is a calibrated effort by India to befriend China more. Does that potentially challenge what you mentioned when you saw India as a counterweight to China?
Well, again, let me just stress this, Vishnu. As Prime Minister, I would frequently say that India was the world's emerging democratic superpower. I think India has emerged now. I think it is the second democratic superpower. And if there is to be a leader of the free world in 40 or 50 years' time, I think it's at least as likely to be the Prime Minister of India as it is the President of the United States. We should not assume that just because China's economy is much bigger than India's today, that is still going to be the case in a few decades' time. India has, I think, three priceless advantages over China. Democracy, which in the end brings out the best in people. The rule of law, which in the end means that people will be treated fairly. And to a great extent, the English language, which rightly or wrongly tends to be the world's common language. So I think India has got some big advantages, and I think it is now well and truly making the most of them.